I heard his laugh before I saw him. Not a big laugh. Just that low, familiar little breath of amusement. The kind that used to slip out of him when he thought he was being quiet. And my whole body reacted like it got electrocuted. I was standing in the grocery store, staring at a row of pasta sauce like it was some deep life decision, when that sound hit me from behind. My fingers went numb. I turned, slow, because part of me didn't want to confirm what my heart already knew. And there he was. Alive. Not looks like him alive. Not kinda similar alive. Same broad shoulders that always filled a doorway. Same uneven silver at his temples. Same scar above the eyebrow he used to claim made him look mysterious. Like he was in some spy movie. He was squinting at a label like the jar had personally offended him. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I might throw up. I didn't even realize I was walking until I was close enough to smell him. Soap and cold air and something sharp like menthol. The same scent that used to cling to my sweaters when he hugged me too long. "Ethan," said. My voice came out cracked. Too small. Like it didn't belong to me. He looked up. And for one split second, his eyes met mine and something flickered there. Crack. A recognition. Tiny panic. It was gone fast, but I saw it. I swear I did. Then his face settled. Polite. Neutral. Careful. "Sorry," he said like I'd asked him for directions. "Do I know you?" My throat closed. I laughed, not because it was funny. Because my body didn't know what else to do. "Stop," I whispered. "Please don't do that." He blinked. "Ma'am." Like I was a stranger. Like I wasn't the woman who used to wipe coffee off his lip with my thumb. Like I wasn't the one who held his hand in a hospital hallway and promised we'd get through it. I fumbled my phone out so fast I almost dropped it. My hands were shaking so hard the screen kept slipping under my thumb. I pulled up a photo. Us on the porch, late afternoon light. His arm around my shoulders, my face pressed against his chest like that was the safest place on earth. I shoved it toward him. "Look," I said. "Just look at this. That's you. That's us." His eyes landed on the screen. And I watched him freeze. Not a full freeze. Not dramatic. Just a pause that was too clean. Too controlled. Like someone hitting a reset button inside their head. Then he exhaled and shook his head slowly. "I'm sorry," he said again, softer this time. "That's not me." My chest burned. I stepped closer, lowering my voice like I could keep the whole store from hearing my life fall apart. "Ethan, you can't." I swallowed hard. "You can't stand here and pretend you don't know me. We buried you." His jaw tightened. "Ma'am," he said, sharper now, eyes darting like he was checking who was listening. "I think you're confused." Confused. I stared at his left hand. "Show me your fingers." He hesitated. Just long enough. Then he lifted his hand. Like he didn't want to, but he'd do it to end the scene. And there it was. That crooked pinky. The one he broke as a teenager and never let heal right. The one I used to hold and joke about. The one I used to kiss when we watched movies and he thought nobody noticed. My breath stopped. He saw my eyes lock onto it. He knew. He grabbed his cart like it could shield him and took a step back. "I really can't help you," he muttered and started turning away. "No," I said louder. My voice bounced off the shelves. Heads turned. I didn't care. "Don't walk away from me." He didn't run. That would have been easier to understand. He just walked, fast, steady, controlled, like he'd practiced leaving. And as he disappeared down the aisle, one thought hit me so hard my knees nearly buckled. If the man I loved was standing right here, who did I put in the ground? I stood there for a second like my brain had been unplugged. People were staring. Someone behind me whispered, "Is she okay?" A store employee crouched near the broken jar like it was the real emergency. But I wasn't looking at the sauce on the floor. I was looking at the empty space where Ethan had been. Because the way he walked away. It wasn't confusion. It wasn't fear. It was something worse. It was strategy. I blinked hard, forcing air into my lungs. My hands were shaking, but my body started moving anyway. Instinct, anger, shock, maybe all three. I pushed my cart forward like I still belonged in the normal world, like I was just another person buying groceries and not a woman chasing a man who was supposed to be dead. I turned the corner at the end of the aisle and caught a glimpse of him near the registers. He didn't look back. That's what confirmed it for me. If he truly didn't know me, he would have looked back. Confused. Curious. Something. But he kept his shoulders stiff and forward, like he was refusing to let his eyes betray him. He went to self-checkout. Not the cashier. Not the line where someone might casually talk to him. Self-checkout, quick and quiet. He scanned only a few items. Bread, eggs, a pack of chicken, some cereal. Basic. Like he didn't want anything that could trace him. Then the part that made my stomach twist. He paid in cash. Who even pays in cash anymore? Ethan used to joke about receipts, about leaving footprints. He said it like a tease, like he was being dramatic. I always rolled my eyes. Now I wasn't rolling my eyes. Now I was thinking, was he practicing for this? I kept my distance, pretending to check my phone, pretending I belonged there. I watched him fold the bills carefully, tuck the change into his pocket, and walk out with 2 plastic bags in one hand like it weighed nothing. The automatic doors opened and swallowed him. My heart started hammering so loud I could feel it in my throat. For half a second I told myself, don't. Go home. Call someone. Think. Be smart. But my feet were already moving. Outside, cold air hit my face. I saw him cross the parking lot like he'd done it 1,000 times. He unlocked an old white sedan. Nothing like our car. No familiar dent, no seat cover I bought, no little keychain I gave him in our first year together. Still, the way he loaded the bags was painfully familiar. Heavy stuff first, bread on top, eggs last, like muscle memory. I ducked behind a row of carts and pulled my phone up, hands trembling so bad my camera struggled to focus. I zoomed in on the license plate and snapped a photo. 1, 2, 3. Proof. Because I knew this moment would try to dissolve later, like a dream. And I couldn't let that happen. He got in and drove away. And I followed. Not close enough to look insane. Not far enough to lose him. 3, maybe 4 car lengths back, staying with the flow of traffic. Every red light felt like a test. Every turn felt like a choice I couldn't undo. My mouth was dry. My palms were sweaty. My brain kept throwing memories at me like punches. His funeral, the closed casket, the hand shaking my shoulder, people saying, "He's gone," like repeating it made it real. I watched him turn into a quieter neighborhood, lined with older trees and small, tidy lawns. He slowed, pulled into a driveway, and my body went ice cold. Because the house he stopped at wasn't random. It looked lived in. Familiar in the way a hiding place looks familiar when it's been used for a long time. I parked down the street, heart in my ears, barely breathing. Then the front door opened. A woman stepped out. Dark hair pulled back. Sweater sleeves pushed up. Calm face. The kind of calm you only have when you're not afraid of what's coming. She smiled at him. Like she knew him. Like he belonged to her. And when she leaned in and kissed his cheek, I felt something inside me split, clean and sharp. Then 2 kids ran out laughing, calling out, "Dad!" My vision blurred. Because that word, that single word, rewrote everything I thought I knew. And as he bent down to hug them like it was the most natural thing in the world, one terrifying question rose up in my chest and refused to stay quiet. If Ethan had a new life, then my old one wasn't just stolen. It was designed to disappear. I didn't get out of the car. Not at first. Because the second I saw those kids throw their arms around him, something in me understood a brutal truth. If I walked up that driveway screaming his name, I wouldn't be the hero in the story. I'd be the crazy woman on the sidewalk. And Ethan, alive, breathing, hugging, would just point at me with that calm face and say, "I don't know her." So I stayed hidden behind my steering wheel, watching like my life depended on it. The curtains in that pale blue house shifted once. Just once. Like someone inside was checking the street. My stomach turned. I kept my phone low and snapped more pictures. Front door, house number, his car, the woman's profile when she stepped back inside. My hands were sweaty. My heart was doing that thing where it felt like it could punch its way out of my ribs. Then I did something I'm not proud of. I whispered, "Please, please look out." Like he'd hear me through glass and distance. Like love had the power to pull him back. But he didn't look out. He didn't even hesitate before the door shut behind him. And when that latch clicked, it hit me like a slap. He wasn't trapped. He was choosing. I drove home on autopilot, barely remembering the turns. My head kept replaying the scene like a broken video. Her kiss, the kids yelling, "Dad." His laugh, the way he held them like he'd done it for years. Inside my house, everything was exactly how I left it. The same quiet. The same framed photo of us on the hallway table. The same coat hook by the door that still held his old cap, because I never had the strength to move it. I stood there, staring at that cap, and my knees started shaking. Then I went straight to the drawer. The one I hadn't opened in months. Death certificate. Funeral receipt. The hospital paperwork. Condolence cards with words that now felt like lies. I laid everything out on the kitchen table like evidence. And that's when I noticed it. Something I'd never questioned because I'd been too devastated to look closely. Tiny mismatch. A date that didn't sit right. A signature that looked rushed. My throat went dry as I grabbed the death certificate and read it again. Slower this time, like my eyes could catch what my grief missed. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. No caller ID. Just a text. A photo loaded on my screen, slightly blurred. Taken from behind me. Me. In the grocery store aisle. Holding up my phone. Staring at him. And under the photo, 6 words. "Stop digging or you'll lose more." The photo of me in the pasta aisle sat on my screen like a warning label. Not "someone saw you." Not "be careful." No, this was "someone followed you close enough to breathe your air." My thumb hovered over the number like it might bite me. Called anyway. 1 ring. Then it clicked. And went dead. No voicemail. No voice. Just silence so clean it felt intentional. I stood in my kitchen, lights off, staring out the window like that would somehow reveal the person holding the other end of my life. My heart was beating hard enough to hurt. I kept thinking, how long have they been watching? Today. Or longer. I backed away from the window. Low. Careful. Like the glass might flash my face to somebody parked outside. Then I did the stupidest thing grief makes you do. I opened the drawer with the papers again. Death certificate. Funeral receipt. Hospital forms. I spread them out like I could force the truth to confess if I stared long enough. That's when my eyes snagged on the funeral home invoice. Closed casket service. My throat tightened. I remembered how they guided me away. How they said it was better I didn't see him. How everyone used gentle words that really meant, "Don't ask." How I nodded because I was drowning and the easiest thing to do was let them carry me. But now I couldn't stop hearing that text. Stop digging or you'll lose more. More than what? More than Ethan. More than my sanity. More than my life. I grabbed my coat and stepped outside. Cold slapped my face. The street was quiet. Too quiet. I scanned left, right, parked cars, dark windows, porch lights glowing like sleepy eyes. Then I saw it. A sedan at the corner I didn't recognize. Engine off. Headlights off. But the driver's seat wasn't empty. I couldn't see the face. Just the shape of a person sitting there, still as a statue like they'd been waiting for me to look. My stomach dropped straight through the pavement. I walked back inside without running because running would admit fear. My hands shook as I locked the door, then locked it again like that changed anything. I pressed my forehead against the wood, breathing fast. And that's when something slid through the mail slot. Soft scrape. Paper hitting tile. Froze. Slowly I crouched and picked it up. Not a letter. Not a threat. Just a small, plain envelope with my name written in blocky handwriting. Tore it open. Inside was a single object that made my blood go cold. Ethan's wedding ring. And a note, 3 words, ink bleeding like it was rushed. "You're next, Ruth." I dropped the ring like it was hot. It hit the kitchen tile with a tiny metallic clink. And that sound did something to me. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic, but it echoed in my chest like a gunshot. Because that ring wasn't similar. It was his. I knew every scratch on it. The faint dent on the edge from the day he slammed it against the truck door and cursed like a teenager. The little dull patch where he used to rub it when he was nervous, like he could polish fear away with his thumb. I crouched down and picked it up again, slower this time, holding it between two fingers like evidence. My throat burned. "You're next, Ruth." That wasn't a warning. That was a message meant to do one thing: make me feel small, make me stop. But the ring did the opposite. Made me furious. I sat at the table with the lights on, every curtain closed, every lock checked twice. My phone was in my hand and I didn't know who to call first. Police, a lawyer, my sister, a therapist, God. 'Cause what do you even say? My dead husband is alive and someone's stalking me. I could already hear the line going quiet. A polite doubt. The mental note they'd make. Grief-induced delusion. Well, if I was going to do this, I needed proof that wasn't just photos and a gut feeling. So I did what Ethan always used to do when something felt wrong. I started building a timeline. I pulled out the death certificate again and read it like it was written in code. Then the hospital paperwork. The funeral invoice. The insurance letter. And suddenly, the same details that once looked official now looked convenient. The doctor's signature was barely legible. The hospital name was correct, but the department stamp looked faint, like it had been pressed over another stamp. The time of death was listed, but the nurse's name was missing. Little holes. Little gaps. The kind of gaps that don't matter when you're grieving. The kind that matter when you're being hunted. I opened my laptop and logged into the insurance portal. Took me 3 tries because my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Then I found it. Payout. The life insurance claim had been processed fast. Too fast. And it wasn't just processed. There was a note attached in the claim history. Beneficiary updated prior to death. My skin prickled. Beneficiary updated. I hadn't updated anything. I clicked deeper, heart pounding. And there it was. An uploaded form scanned and signed. Dated 2 weeks before he died. The signature looked like Ethan's from a distance. But up close, it was wrong. Like someone had practiced it. Like someone had traced my life with a shaky hand. A cold thought crawled up my spine. What if the point of his death wasn't to end his life? What if it was to erase it? I slammed the laptop shut like it could bite me. Then I forced myself to breathe. If the beneficiary was changed, that meant someone gained something. Money. Control. Protection. And if Ethan was living in that pale blue house with a woman and kids, then maybe this wasn't just about hiding. Maybe this was a whole new identity built on top of mine. I grabbed my keys. Then I stopped. Because as I stepped toward the door, my phone lit up again. Unknown number. A new text. No photo this time. Just an address. An address I recognized so well my stomach flipped. A cemetery. And one line beneath it. Go see who's really buried. The cemetery was supposed to feel peaceful. Instead it felt like a set. Like someone staged closure here and forgot the one thing that makes it real, truth. I parked under a bare tree and sat in the dark for a second, staring at the rows of headstones like they were teeth. My phone screen still glowed with that message. Go see who's really buried. My hands were tight on the steering wheel. Kept thinking this is a trap. And then another thought followed right behind it, colder. Maybe my whole life has been one. Got out anyway. The air was sharp, and the wind moved through the grass in soft waves like it was whispering to itself. I walked fast but not reckless, because I didn't want to be heard. Didn't want to be noticed. His grave was exactly where it had always been. Same stone. Name. Same dates that used to make my stomach turn. But when I got close my breath caught because the ground looked wrong. Not dug up. Not dramatic. Just unsettled. Like the soil hadn't fully packed down. Like something had been disturbed recently and put back like nobody would notice. I crouched, fingertips hovering over the dirt without touching it. My throat tightened. What did you do? I whispered, And I didn't even know who I was talking to anymore. Then I saw it, something small near the edge of the plot. A scrap of ribbon, pale and frayed, caught under a tuft of grass. Funeral ribbon. The kind that comes from wreaths. Only this one looked fresh. I stood and scanned around, heart hammering. The cemetery was empty, until it wasn't. Flashlight beam flicked across the path behind me. I turned so fast I almost lost my balance. An older man in a work jacket stood there, holding the light low. Groundskeeper. His face was tired, suspicious, not unkind. "Ma'am," he said, voice rough. "Cemetery's closed." I swallowed, forcing my voice to steady. I'm visiting my husband." His eyes shifted to the headstone, then back to me. Something in his expression changed, like he'd seen this before. "Name?" he asked. I said it. He didn't react like a stranger hearing a stranger's grief. He reacted like a man hearing a problem he wishes he didn't know about. He cleared his throat. "You shouldn't be here tonight." My skin prickled. "Why?" He hesitated, then muttered. "People have been asking questions about that plot. Last week. Couple days before that too." My mouth went dry. "Who?" He didn't answer. Just looked past me, over my shoulder toward the parking lot. And when I followed his gaze, my blood turned to ice. A sedan sat near the entrance. Engine off. Lights off. But the driver's door opened anyway. And a figure stepped out, slow and confident, like they weren't afraid of being seen. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. One new text. 3 words that made my chest tighten so hard it hurt. "Don't turn around." The text said, "Don't turn around." So of course, turn. Not fast. Not dramatic. Just slow enough to feel every second stretch, like my spine was counting down to impact. The figure by the entrance didn't rush me. Didn't wave. Didn't yell my name. They just stood there, half swallowed by shadow, like they wanted me to know they could step into my world whenever they felt like it. My throat went dry. Behind me, the groundskeeper's flashlight beam shook. He lowered it like light suddenly felt too loud. "Ma'am," he whispered. "Come with me. Now." I didn't ask questions. My body finally did the smart thing before my mind caught up. I followed him off the path between 2 rows of stones, down a narrow maintenance lane where the grass grew taller and the air smelled like damp soil. He pulled open a small shed door and waved me inside. The space was cramped. Big bags of fertilizer. Metal chair. He shut the door until it was almost closed, just enough of a crack to see out. My breathing sounded huge in the darkness. "What is happening?" Mouth. He didn't answer at first. He just stared through the crack like a man trying to decide how much truth he could afford. Then he finally said it, so quiet I almost didn't hear him. "They came here last month." My stomach clenched. "Who?" He swallowed. 2 men. And a woman. Nice coats. Clean shoes. Not the type that usually visits graves. My skin prickled. "Did they touch the plot?" He nodded once. Small, defeated nod. "They didn't dig. Not like you're thinking." He glanced at me. "They checked it. Like they were confirming something. Then they left." I pressed my fist against my mouth to keep my voice from shaking. "And you didn't tell anyone?" His eyes flicked toward the crack again. "I tried." He paused. "Then someone told me to stop asking questions." My blood went cold. "Someone from the cemetery." He let out a bitter breath. "Someone who knew my granddaughter's school schedule." That hit me like a punch. Not because it was new, because it confirmed what I'd been trying not to admit. This wasn't random. This was organized. I whispered. "Why are they doing this?" He reached into his jacket pocket, hesitated, then pulled out a folded piece of paper, worn at the edges like he'd handled it 100 times without opening it. "I kept this," he said, "in case the right person ever came." I unfolded it with shaking hands. It was a copy of a cemetery entry log. Vehicle description. And one name scribbled beside it that made my chest seize up. Hartman. The same last name the Paul guy had used in the grocery store. I looked up at the groundskeeper, barely able to breathe. He stared back and whispered, "You're not crazy." Then my phone buzzed again. One new message. No words this time. Just a photo, taken from outside the shed. The crack of the door. The edge of my face. And one line underneath. "If you walk out, we end this. Permanently." The photo was taken from outside the shed. Not a guess. Not a maybe. I could see the angle. Distance. The tiny reflection in the glass. Whoever sent it wasn't just nearby. They were close enough to press their face to the crack and watch me breathe. My stomach turned. The groundskeeper's hands were shaking now. He wasn't trying to be brave anymore. He was trying to survive. "Back door," he whispered, pointing behind the shed toward a narrow service path. "Go. Don't use the main lot. And don't come back here." I wanted to argue. Questions. Demand names. But fear makes decisions simple. I nodded once. Silent. I slipped out the back and moved fast through the shadows, keeping low between trees and headstones. Every sound felt amplified. My shoes in the grass, my breath, the faint hum of traffic beyond the cemetery gate. When I reached my car, my hands were so cold I could barely grip the handle. I drove without turning on the radio. No music. No comfort. Just the engine and my pulse and the feeling that I wasn't alone on the road. I kept checking the rearview mirror like it could warn me in time. Nothing. Then headlights. Then nothing again. By the time I pulled into the police station parking lot, my throat was raw from breathing wrong. I sat there for a second, staring at the building like it was a courtroom and I was already guilty. Then I forced myself out. Inside, the air smelled like coffee and old carpet. A desk officer looked up with the bored face of someone who's heard every story and believes none of them. "I need to report something," I said, and my voice surprised me. Steady, even though my hands wouldn't stop trembling. He listened. Enough. His eyes flicked to the ring in my palm, then to the printed photo I'd pulled up on my phone, then to my face like he was trying to decide where to file me. Credible or unwell. "You're saying your husband is alive," he repeated slowly. "I'm saying I saw him," I snapped. Then I lowered my voice. "And someone is following me. They sent threats. They left his ring at my door." He leaned back, lips pressed, like he'd already written the ending in his head. "I can take a statement," he said. "But if this is a domestic issue." "It's not," I cut in. "It's bigger than that." He stared at his screen, typed a few things, then paused. His expression shifted. Not sympathy. Not skepticism. Something else. Confusion, mixed with caution. He turned the monitor slightly away from me like it contained something sharp. "Ma'am," he said, voice suddenly careful. "Before we do anything, I need to ask you a question." My chest tightened. "What?" He swallowed once. "Why did you file a complaint against Paul Hartman 2 hours ago?" My mind blanked. "I didn't," I said, and the words came out thin. "I've never even." He reached into a tray and pulled out a printed report. Photos clipped to the back. Me in the grocery store aisle. Me outside the pale blue house. Me parked near the cemetery entrance. Then his next sentence landed like a trap snapping shut. "Because according to this," he said, tapping the page, "Paul Hartman says you've been stalking his family, and he wants a restraining order." I stared at the photos until they blurred. And the only thought I could hold on to was this. How did he turn the law against me, before I even walked in? "Ma'am, I need you to step back from the counter." That's what the officer said. Not loud. Not angry. Just official. Like I'd already crossed a line and everyone in the building knew it except me. My stomach flipped. I looked around and suddenly every badge felt heavier. Every camera in the corner felt sharper. The desk officer wasn't typing anymore. He was watching me like he was waiting to see if I'd break. "I came here for help," I said, and my voice shook even though I hated that it did. "Someone is threatening me. I have proof." He held up a hand. "We're gonna talk about that. But right now you need to come with me." He led me down a hallway that smelled like stale coffee and disinfectant, into a small interview room with no windows. Table. 2 chairs. A camera in the corner that stared like it didn't blink. The door clicked shut. And that sound. God. Something about that sound made me realize how easy it is to turn a victim into a suspect. He slid a folder across the table. Paul Hartman says you've been following him. He says you've been photographing his children. He paused. He's asking for an emergency restraining order. I felt heat climb into my face. I photographed him. Because he's my husband. The officer's eyes didn't change. Your husband is deceased. I swallowed hard, then reached into my bag with shaking hands and pulled out the cemetery log copy. The insurance printout. The photo of the beneficiary change. The picture of the license plate. I spread it all out like a messy prayer. Look, I said, forcing the words through my throat. Hartman. That name shows up at the cemetery. And this beneficiary form. I didn't sign it. I didn't authorize it. Someone forged it. He stared at the papers longer this time. His jaw tightened. Then he stood and walked out without saying a word. I sat there alone, hands clenched, heart pounding, listening to the muffled sounds beyond the door. I expected cuffs. I expected laughter. I expected someone to tell me to go home and get some rest. Instead, after a few minutes, the door opened and a different woman walked in. Plain clothes, tired eyes, hair pulled back like she didn't have time for drama. She sat down slowly and looked at me like she was deciding whether I was dangerous or terrified. I'm Detective Lila Moreno, she said. Tell me your husband's name. Ethan, I whispered. Ethan Caldwell. She didn't react until I said the last name. Then something flickered across her face, quick as a shadow. She leaned in, voice low. Ruth, I'm going to be very clear. If you contact this man directly, you'll help his case. If you go near that house again, he'll paint you as the threat. My chest tightened. Then what am I supposed to do? Let him erase me. Her eyes stayed locked on mine. No, she said quietly. You do it clean. You do it on record. And you do it where he can't rewrite it. She tapped the folder on the table. Your hearing is tomorrow morning. Tomorrow. My throat went dry. A hearing for what? She held my gaze. For the restraining order. Then she slid her phone across the table and turned the screen toward me. Courthouse notice. Room number. And right underneath it, his name. Paul Hartman. I stared at it until the letters blurred, and all I could think was, he's pulling me into court like I'm the criminal. Detective Moreno stood, paused at the door, and said one last thing without turning around. Ruth, if he's confident enough to take you to court, it means he thinks you still don't have the one piece that can destroy him. The door clicked shut again. And in that quiet little room, I realized the terrifying part wasn't the hearing. The terrifying part was this. By tomorrow, I would be standing in the same building as Ethan. And I didn't know if he'd keep pretending, or finally say my name out loud. The first time I saw him again, it wasn't in a grocery aisle. It was in a courtroom. And he didn't look at me. He looked straight at the judge like he belonged there. Clean shirt, calm face, that same controlled posture. Like the world had never buried him. I felt my knees go weak, but I didn't sit down. Not yet. Because if I sat, I knew I'd fold. And I didn't come here to fold. He walked in with a woman beside him. Tight smile, polished hair, eyes sharp like she'd rehearsed this. The same woman from the pale blue house. She didn't glance at me once like I was air. The clerk called the case. Paul Hartman versus Ruth. Hearing my name in that room hit different. Sounded like a challenge. He finally turned his head, just a little, and our eyes met. And there it was again. That flicker. That crack. He knew exactly who I was. His lawyer spoke first. Muth. My client fears for the safety of his family. The respondent has been stalking him, taking photographs. I couldn't help it. I laughed one sharp breath. Not because it was funny. Because it was disgusting. The judge looked at me. Ma'am, you'll have a chance to respond. He nodded. Low. I'm ready. Then Detective Lila Moreno walked in. No drama. No big entrance. Just a folder in her hand and the kind of tired confidence that says, I don't bluff. Your Honor, she said, before you consider an order, we need to address evidence of identity fraud and insurance manipulation connected to the petitioner. The room shifted. I watched his jaw tighten, tiny, but I saw it. Same way it used to when he was caught. Detective Moreno laid it out piece by piece. The beneficiary change. The signature inconsistencies. The cemetery entry log with the name Hartman. The threat sent to my phone. The envelope that carried the ring. Processed, traced, handled like it mattered. Then she said the sentence that broke the spell. We have reason to believe Paul Hartman is an assumed identity. Silence. The judge stared over her glasses. Mr. Hartman, is that true? He didn't answer fast enough. And that hesitation, God. After weeks of being told I was confused, unstable, emotional. That hesitation felt like oxygen. His lawyer tried to stand. Your Honor. The judge cut him off. Sit down. I looked at Ethan, at Paul, at the man who wore two lives like coats. My voice came out low, steady. You walked away from me like I was nothing. You let me grieve you. You let me bury a name. And you thought I'd stay quiet because it hurt too much to speak. His eyes flashed, anger, fear, something ugly. I leaned forward just slightly. You were wrong. The judge denied the restraining order on the spot and ordered a formal investigation. Officers stepped toward him. The woman beside him stiffened, her mask cracking for the first time. As they led him out, he finally looked back at me. Not polite, not neutral, just exposed. And in that one raw second, I didn't see my husband. I saw a man who made choices. And I realized something that changed me in the deepest way. Closure doesn't come from someone confessing. Closure comes from you deciding you're done being erased. I walked out of that courthouse and felt the sun on my face like it was the first honest thing I'd felt in months. My life wasn't magically fixed. Healing isn't a switch. But I left with my name intact. And I left with my voice. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you've lived through something similar, share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.